right, back again, and we continue to add data, different ways to add data to our map. In this segment, we're going to look at adding the kind of data you get from a GPS to your map, the kind of data you get from the Avenza app, which many of you will work with, if not all of you, and then the kind of data you can pull off of Google Maps. So sometimes you want something on in your GIS, and here's how you can do it. So first off, some of these instructions I'm not going to be able to demonstrate because they don't show up on my computer screen. They're going to be in your device. But if you're working with a handheld GPS, you're going to download the GPX file from your GPS to your computer, external drive, or cloud storage. So you're just going to get your GPX file off of that GPS receiver, and then you're going to use that the GPX to features tool to convert it into a feature class for viewing in ArcGIS Pro. So let's kind of show what that looks like. We're going to use the GPX to features. Okay. And what I've done here, I'll show you, is I've got a GPX file here for you. I think I pulled it off of my Garmin watch. I've got a little, like a way old GPS receiver, but I pulled that GPX file. So now it's going to be in the folder section 3, adding data. So you should have that over here if we go back to our GIS. And I'm going to go ahead and close the geoprocessing pane. I'm going to look at the catalog pane. And if I look in my folders here, section 3, adding data folder, there I don't see my GPX, but I know it's in there. So this will be, we'll see. It doesn't show up here, but we can still add it to the your GPX file will not show up in the GIS catalog, but you can still use we can still use a tool to pull it in. So let's see. So we're going to use the GPX to features tool. And the way we're going to get that is by going to the analysis tab here, and we're going to go to the toolbox. So we've looked at a few different tabs. We've looked at map, we've looked at insert a little bit. Now let's go to the analysis. We're going to click on tools, and the easiest way to get geoprocessing tools is to just type in the name. So GPX, and if you start to type it in, it'll auto-complete. So we're going to go GPX to features. And we're going to input our GPX file, and this is where we have to navigate to where it's stored. So it's not sitting here in my catalog, but we know we stored it in the same folder. So in the project folder, section 3, adding data, and there's my GPX. So even though it doesn't show up in the catalog, it will show up when you pull in the tool. So that's just the default name that my watch gave this activity. I'm going to hit OK, and so now that pulls in there. And then the output, it's going to have just the default output name will be whatever name the GPX file is, and then appended to it will be GPX to features. All right. And this, I believe, is supposed to be a line. So I'm going to do tracks as polylines, and then I'm going to run it. So if your GPS file is points, you're going to choose points. If it's lines, you're going to choose that. You don't actually get polygons. You actually have to do another step if you want something to become a polygon. All right. And we run. We don't get any errors, so that's great. Let's take a look. I don't see it yet, but if I right-click and say zoom to layer, there we go. You're following along with me? Oh, this was a fun one. Where was I? Oh, okay, this was July 4th. I wasn't sure which activity I'd downloaded for y'all. Yeah, this was going just a quick morning up into the Eagle Cap. Cool thing, for those of you who are in the wildlife program, I don't know if you're familiar with Northeast Oregon. We have to have a break from all GIS here and think about other things. If you're familiar with Northeast Oregon, let's see if we can get some boundaries in here, just zooming out. So there's the Washington state boundary, and I'm going down into the mountains here, into the Eagle Cap Wilderness. And this is Wallowa Lake, which is a pretty little, very pretty lake, not that little. And then I just took a run up into the Eagle Cap Wilderness, which that's where we're up here, up high. And just before I got to Aneroid Lake, I saw a fisher on the trail, which is like totally rare, a rare carnivore. It's about the size of like a large cat. Um, it's in the mustelid family, but it doesn't really, it's kind of got a rounder face. Anyway, so really cool. I saw one right around here. So if you feel so inclined to go look for fisher, there's a place to look for them. And you can see this track was actually an out and back, so you know it's kind of ugly. When we get into editing, we'll learn how to edit this. But today, it's kind of neat. We just learned how to add a GPX track to our GIS map so that we can look at it along with other things. So yeah, so hopefully that showed up all right for you. That's how it's done. I can close my geoprocessing there. I'm not going to use it at the moment. I'll use it again in a minute. So what did we want to say about that? Okay, so we found GPX to features. Click on the folder to navigate to your input file. The output will need to be saved to a geodatabase. Yes. Because it's a feature class, choose points. Point if you are converting single locations, or polyline if you are converting a track, which we just did. Okay. If you walked the perimeter of a feature and created a track in your GPS, you can convert the track to a polyline, and then use the, I think, feature to polygon to show the feature as a polygon. We don't really want to show this one as a polygon, but maybe let's do it just for kicks. So if I go back, so I went back into my tools. I know at the beginning, the first few weeks of class, you probably have to pause me and slow me down, and by the end of class, you'll be like, hurry up, and you're going to have to speed up my demonstrations. But just want to make sure I tell you the right tool. Yes, so feature to polygon is what we're going to use if we want to, and this is how, so let's say you use a GPS to walk around a feature to try to get the outline of it. Maybe you're like walking around a lake and you want to put the lake's boundaries on your map. You're going to need to walk around it, so then you take your GPX file, you download it as a polyline with, with the tool we just used, and then you'll use feature to polygon, and you'll input the feature, and then it's going to become a polygon. It's going to automatically save to, and we're not going to, I don't know, yeah, I don't think we need to label it, and then we can run that. So now it's a line here, a polyline, and now it's a, if I turn that polyline off, and we zoom in here, I'm going to cheat and I'm going to change what this looks like so it'll be easier for you to see. Just do it as, so now when we zoom in to that, you can see it was an out and back, right? So sometimes my track wasn't exactly on top of itself, and now you can see where those lines enclosed a polygon, they've been turned into lines. So that's the feature to polygon tool. You'll find that useful. So 2 tools if you need to go from a line to a polygon, a GPX line to a polygon, but you can run those 2 tools. All right. I wish you were here in class with me so I could say questions. Anyone? Do you want to see something again? And I totally would. You know that you can email me with questions, and I'll get back to you. So let's move on to the next piece here. How do you add data from Avenza to my map? So we just looked at GPX files that you got from your GPS receiver. What if you're running the Avenza app? If you don't know what this is, don't worry about it right now. If you're a natural resources student at SCC, you'll use Avenza with Matt. If you're a water science student, you might use Avenza. I think that Dave uses it a little bit. When you go and work for the agencies, it's very likely, especially if you work for the Forest Service or the DNR, that you'll use the Avenza app. And basically, it's an app that you can put on your phone or a tablet, and you use it to collect data, to look at maps, to navigate. It's really user-friendly. It's kind of my go-to for my own personal use. But I'm focused on the GIS side of things, so I'm not going to teach you how to use Avenza. You will get that instruction when you need it. But if you already are using Avenza, or you need to and you need to download files, I will cover that part. So I'm walking through the instructions here, and what you may find that you end up doing, if you haven't used Avenza yet, don't worry about this part, but save the workbook, because when you do use Avenza, I've just given you a step-by-step on how to add data from Avenza to GIS. So I'm just telling you, go into the map you collect the data on, choose the feature created, export it as a KML or a GPX, email the file to yourself or save it to your storage. Now you can use it, the KML to layer or GPX to features tool to convert your Avenza download into a feature class. And remember, you need to save the new files to a geodatabase because they're going to be feature classes. Because it's a feature class. And then I kind of walk you through the windows that you would see on your phone. Okay, so if this doesn't look familiar to you and you've never been in Avenza, totally don't worry about this. But remember, when you do get into Avenza in another class or maybe on the job, hey, you've got some instructions here. So come back to your workbook, look through it, and it'll help you out. Okay. I just wanted to kind of show you that. The next thing, I do want to show you how to use the KML to layer tool. I mean, it's pretty soon this is going to be like, oh, duh, this is pretty easy. So I get my geoprocessing tools. I can click here, or I can go back there, and I'm going to go KML to layer. All right. And I'm going to input my KML file, which I have this one that I created for us, and that's in our Section 3 Adding Data folder, because that's what we're doing. We're in Section 3 and we're adding data. And this is somewhere in the Goat Rocks Wilderness apparently, and I'm going to just use the default output location, which is going to be into let's see, Section 3 demo. Yeah, okay. And then it's going to be named Goat Rocks Marmot. And I'm going to hit run. So the defaults will be fine. Section 3 demo is my thing. And let's see here. If I right click and zoom to layer, that didn't work because I don't have a full layer. And it doesn't symbolize it. So let me pause and I will troubleshoot. I think what happened is, let's look at the details here. Details, it did say it succeeded, but I don't see anything in here. It should have something in it. I wonder if either I accidentally gave you an empty KML, which is possible, or possibly, let's see, output location. Yeah, a layer should be able to save here. Okay. Okay. Well, let me troubleshoot that and we'll be right back. Okay, I just fixed the error in the file that I'd originally placed in there. The original Goat Rocks Marmot was empty, so that's why it didn't work. So let's go ahead and run through this again. KML to layer tool, yes. We're gonna navigate to our file. I call this one Hoary Marmot KMZ, and it should be in your Section 3 Adding Data folder. So you wouldn't have seen that because I fixed it. And when you get to that folder, you won't see the file that didn't work. So it's going to be Hoary Marmot KMZ. Hit OK. The output location is just going to be the Section 3 demo folder that we've been working in. We're going to call it Hoary Marmot. Sure, that's great. And what you're going to see is GPX files are a little bit more elegant when you add them to GIS, and KML and KMZ files not quite as elegant. So here it showed up. You might have to zoom out to get to it, but you get this giant pin, push pin. There's my location, and isn't it ugly? Okay, there we are, way up high in the Goat Rocks Wilderness, where I saw a Hoary Marmot. But then if you look over here in the contents, you get a layer that's composed of the title of the file and then points. And the points you're going to have are going to have the name symbol ID, and you're going to have that ugly symbol and a 0 next to it. Now, today we're not going to work on making this pretty, and you also get it automatically labeled with a bright white and a thick outline. It says Hoary Marmot here. So it's ugly. The KML KMZ files you bring in are going to be ugly. We will fix them up and make them pretty. We'll work on that when we work on symbolization, which we're going to get to. But today we just want to practice getting things in. Okay. So that's that. We got it in. We got our KML file, and of course the pin looks huge and it's ugly. But we'll deal with that later when we deal with symbolization. But there's the Goat Rocks Wilderness. It's between Mount Rainier and Mount St. Helens. So really pretty. What else did I want to show you? Okay. I was going to show you how to add data from Google Maps. So let's take a look there. And anything you get from Google Maps is also going to be a KML file, and that's okay. But when you get things off of Avenza, I suggest downloading them as a GPX because it's going to be a little bit easier to manage. But you can export them as a KML. Like I said, I think GPX looks a little prettier from the start, but you can work with a KML too. So let's go to Google Maps. And we're going to go to Google My Maps. In fact, maybe I'm going to just use the link in our workbook here. So you've used Google Maps before, yes, but have you used Google My Maps? And you know what? I kind of hate Bing, but we'll be okay because apparently we're in Edge. I actually do use Google My Maps some. You can see I just love doing stuff with maps. But we're going to create a new map. And what you'll need to do here is you're going to need to sign in with your Google account here. Of course, you can use different Google accounts. I apparently just signed us into my personal Google account, and that's fine for today. But you probably have a Google account. If you don't, you're going to find it's really useful. So we'll sign into our Google account. We'll go create a new map. And we can call it whatever we want to call it. I'm going to call it Sunday Ride, so it'll look a little bit like what I put together in your in the demonstration in the workbook. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to show you that going between Google Maps and like I said, Google My Maps gives you some functionality that you don't otherwise have. So take this time, go ahead and get yourself signed into Google My Maps, and you can use the link in the workbook, like I said. But going into Google is great for finding businesses. If you want to put businesses into your GIS, Google has a pretty good handle on businesses because it's to their advantage to be listed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look up Spokane bakeries. Because what if I wanted to do a bike ride where I hit a bunch of local bakeries? I can't think of a better bakery or better Sunday ride than that. Can you? So here we go. I've got a listing of at least many bakeries in Spokane. And what I want to do is I want to, I just do a search just like you do for Google. And you guys, for you, it's probably a pretty native interface. If you're of my generation or younger, you're probably set. If you're a little bit older than my generation, it'll take you a little bit, like you have to get oriented to it. Or if you grew up in the woods, and just haven't been messing with computers, which I fully support, you'll figure this out. But we're going to go to Google My Maps. We do a search here. I just looked up Spokane bakeries, and bam, they populate on my map. If I want to save them in a layer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, Google My Maps. If you start a new map, it's automatically going to give you an untitled layer. I'm going to call this bakeries. And I'm going to add each of the maps, each of the bakeries to that. Bam. So if I hit the plus next to them, it's going to take them from these kind of temporary search to a full layer. If you know that you don't like one of these bakeries, you can certainly not include it. Or if it's like, hey, that's way out of my way. So You could certainly not include it, but like, I don't know, sweet frosting, that's kind of a ways away. So I will remove that one from the map. But otherwise, I mean, this is relatively, do I want to go out to Costco? What's over here? Me Flavor, oh, but they have Me Flavor, if you haven't, they have the macarons, like the real French ones that melt in your mouth. I'm going to keep that one on my ride, just in case. Okay, I didn't need to digress. It's getting late here. But now what we want to do is, so now we've got a layer that shows bakeries in Spokane. And if I want to use that in GIS, I totally can. I'm going to export the data from that layer. So I just go to these three ellipses, or these three vertical dots. I'm going to say export data. I'm going to export it as a KML or KMZ. That's our option when we're working with Google. So they're not going to be as pretty. Keep data up to date with a network link KML. Yeah, I'm not going to use that. KML instead of KMZ. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to download them. Okay. So now I got my businesses. I put them on my map. I'm exporting them as a KMZ, and that's going to go to my downloads. So I'm going to right click, cut it out of my downloads, and put it into the folder I'm using for this class. So let's go. Let's see here. Where was that? Oh, how about I just go to my quick link? I'm going to put it in the adding data, paste it in there. So now I've got my bakeries, and I'm going to then use the KML to layer tool. So I may even have that tool up still. Yeah, so what I am going to want to do is I'm going to go back to my catalog, and I'm going to right click on this folder, adding data, and I'm going to refresh it. Okay, so now I see my bakeries there. So when I go to my geoprocessing tool, KML to layer, I can go in here. I can choose the bakeries. I can hit OK. It's going to output them into my Section 3 demo folder, which is the project I'm working in, and it's going to be called bakeries. Sure, that's great. I'm going to hit run. It's going to run, and now I've got the same symbols that were used on the map. You get the push pin when you're in Google Earth. You get these little puppies when you're in when you use Google My Maps, and each of these are labeled in itty bitty. You're not going to be able to read them. I don't even know if we zoom in more, but we're going to learn how to mess with those. So we'll actually we're going to pull this project up again when we work with symbolization, and we're going to fix these symbols. So don't worry about it for now. You've got the bakeries in Spokane. You can plan your ride to maximize your frosting consumption on your Sunday morning ride. Isn't that a great idea? I think hopefully it's inspired me. I think I know what I'm going to do this Sunday. Okay, but that's how we're going to get from that's how we're going to, I kind of spell it out here, but you got to walk through it with me. Now on your map, you should have those bakeries. Let's see, plus. I'm just filling in what we just did. As you hover over each of those points, a plus sign appears. You're going to add it to and then you're going to click on the three dots. At the right side of your layer to export these points. We exported them as a KML or KMZ. We just did that. So this is just, the workbook is just showing what we just did. And then we're going to use the KML to layer tool to bring these into a feature class. Okay. Finishing up here, we actually already did this part. How do I add data from a list of coordinates to my map? You probably remember that from just a demonstration ago. So if you have coordinates for points, for a point or points, you can add them to your map from a spreadsheet. Okay, we already did that, so I'm not going to show it again. And then the X and Y coordinates need to be in decimal degrees. We just didn't fill this part out. The headings in your spreadsheet need to meet GIS naming standards. Yeah, that's how we got the frog points on our map. And let's see. Okay, and longitudes in the Western Hemisphere or latitudes in the Southern Hemisphere will have a negative sign. So if you're south of the equator, you're going to have a negative sign. If you're west of the prime meridian, you'll have negative sign. And so we just worked with that frog data and added it to our map. So that's it for adding things to our map from a few different file types. Our next demonstration will get into adding data from state and federal agencies. Let's just take one last look at our map before we close this down to make sure you've kind of got what I've got. It's not pretty, but it's going to have we're going to have some opportunities to work with this later, so we want to have those on. So you should have your frog XY data. You should have your hoary marmot ugliness over in the Goat Rocks, and then you should have your bakeries as well. And then you should have your GPX to features down in the Eagle Cap Wilderness, both as a line and as a polygon that we changed it to. So just kind of inventorying what we have. And then we also have our state parks, county parks, city parks in Spokane County, although those are turned off. Whew. Just to simplify things when we start this up for the next demonstration, let's go ahead and I went to the map tab, bookmarks. Let's go ahead and rest here at SCC and save our map, and then we will come back to this in the next demonstration. Thanks for sticking with me.